Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are here now to start the program and to really get into some very serious issues. First of all, we're going to be talking about democracy issues. I mean, these are interesting times. It seems a whole lot of times, we complain about people not voting. We complain a lot about people not voting. And I tell you something, I don't like to spend a whole lot of time on why they don't, or rather, I don't like to spend a whole lot of time stating the obvious, that we have a problem with people not voting. What I do want to say, however, is what's important for us to do is to make sure that people have a reason to vote. Now, what's been happening lately is as more people get into the voting process and more people vote, we tend to have the plutocracy, and a whole lot of folks kind of take exception when I talk a whole lot about the plutocracy, or when I talk about this occurring. Why is it that folks are not voting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Look, folks, I want to give a classic example of why people are fed up. I want to give a perfect example that gives reason. When people say, oh, they don't vote, to give you a reason why. Here in Texas, and this likely applies to places all over the country. Here in Texas, here in Harris County, Texas, the people of Harris County decided to give the firemen a raise. They said the firemen are just as important to them as police officers. And in so doing, they said, we want our police officers, or we want our firemen, our fire persons to be compensated just like we compensate our police officers. And that's justifiable. They both put their lives at risks. So the people voted overwhelmingly. They voted overwhelmingly to support firemen, fire people, fire persons. They said, yes, we agree. The citizens of Houston said they agree that firemen should make the same pay as police officers. It doesn't matter what the mayor thinks. It does not matter what the police union thinks. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks, because this is a democracy. And the people said, we want our fire persons paid as much as police officers. Now, first of all, I find it completely. I am extremely disappointed in police officers that they would come out and actively file suit against the people of Texas the people of Houston who are paying them. The people of Houston who are paying the police officers are being sued by the police officers for saying and voting for giving fire persons the same pay police officers get in the aggregate. Does that make any sense? First of all, shame on the police officers. Shame on the police officers. They are out there preaching about the requirements that they have is greater than fire persons. When somebody is in need of service, shooting a gun doesn't require any more skills than shooting water on a fire to save lives. And in fact, if I had to be judge and jury, the fire persons would make more than the police officers until they clean their act up and stop killing people of color for the sake of their own fears. So But anyhow, the people of Houston voted, and it was a democratic election. And what is happening now? They are filing suit. As well, I understand the mayor is trying to weasel out of giving or obeying what the people of Houston have said. Okay, it doesn't only go here in Houston. Wisconsin. Wisconsin elected a Democratic governor, and the Democratic governor ran on ensuring that the state would withdraw from that suit that is not allowing the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act to go to the citizens. Many of them Republicans that are hurting. Many of them that are hurting, that need health care, that are dying. And what is the legislature in Wisconsin doing right now after the people have spoken? The legislature is now saying, well, we are going to pass a law that's going to prevent the governor, when that governor takes office, from going ahead and getting out of the Affordable Care Act. And they're also saying we are going to give we are going to limit the Attorney General's power, who also was elected in Wisconsin, a Democrat, that we can come with private legal help away from the Secretary of State. And it goes on and on and on. In other words, these guys act as if, well, if you people are going to elect Democrats, we are going to get around it. We are not going to allow Democrats to be elected or govern when you have elected them. We are not going to do the things that the people tell us to do. We are going to run this entire cabal ourselves. And right now, what happened is this, folks. Most of the legislatures throughout this country was controlled by Republicans because of gerrymandering. Because of gerrymandering and because of Democrats and progressives not voting. Now that things are turning around, we've had activism throughout this country. We have gotten people off their butts. We've had people out there doing what has to be done to vote. We've been telling all the young millennials, we've been telling all the Gen Xers, hey guys, the Gen Zs, look guys, democracy works. If you vote, things change. And what the Republicans are doing with all kinds of measures, not only the Republicans, but neoliberals as well, with all kinds of measures, is going against what the people asked for. So what I'm telling you folks right now, okay, democracy works and your vote counts. When these guys usurp the value of your vote, it is your job to force the action. So when we as activists out there call on you for actions, when we call on you to do something, we are going to be dependent on you because we are going to make sure that your vote matters. We will make sure your vote matters because this cannot continue. The people of Houston have voted to support the firefighters to ensure that they get the same pay as police officers. If that suit goes through, the first thing that's going to go down is we need to make sure that the police officers go down for, first of all, going against their brothers and sisters in the fire department. Both of them provide services to the city. They should not be fighting each other. I don't think it's the rank and file police officers, maybe the unions, but you know what? They must be a political target. I'm not going to mix my words here. We're all working within the political process here. We must make anyone going against, any entity, anyone going against the will of the people to be a political, we must go at them politically and get them disembarged politically. Because the will of the people matters. If those of us who supported these values now don't stand up and ensure that they go through, how can we go back to the millennials? How can we go back to the Gen Zs? How can we go back to the Gen Xers? How can we go back to all those boomers that sat out saying, my vote doesn't matter. They're going to do what they want to do. No, they're not going to do what they want to do unless we allow them to do it. So folks, here's the next image. Democracy reigns. Democracy reigns. Democracy reigns. Freedom, participation, representation, voice, choice. All these things matter, but you have to fight for it. It's not going to just happen. And I know you got a busy day. You go to work, you come home, you're tired. You don't want to be bothered with these things, and I understand that. That's what we are here for. Activists, journalists, we are the ones on the front lines, but we need you as well. When we need you, we are going to need you, and we will say, folks, we need you now, and we need your bodies. We need this now. Because, folks, democracy matters. Democracy matters. I don't care if you're in your cushy job right now. I don't care if you're in an executive job right now. I don't care where you are right now. All of us, if democracy fails to reign, even you guys in the 10%ers are in trouble. Don't be fooled by your current level of success. If you doubt me, visit my neighborhood where there were quite a few people who thought they were on top of the world and are no longer here. Folks, democracy matters and you have to sustain it. Today's program, and by the way, the same thing that I said occurred in Wisconsin, where the deadbeat or the lame duck Republican session is trying to take away power from the Democrats who are going to be taking office in January. They're trying it in Michigan as well, and they're trying it all over the country. And the only way they get away with it is if we don't have our watchful eyes on the ball, making sure that they cannot get away with it. That is our job. Es nuestro trabajo en asegurarnos que no pueden hacer lo que quieren hacer, que tienen que respetar el voto de la gente. They have to respect the vote of the people. They must, and we must allow it. Today's program is titled, and let me bring it up. I kind of started on my rant, that's an important rant, folks. That is important, because I tell you what, if we allow this to go through, it's going to be hard as hell. And this is why they're doing it. It's going to be hard as we made incremental progress in 2018. And a lot of people are seeing that. But if we don't show continued success, those people who we begged to vote, those people who thought they'd had no value, they will stop. Folks, if you're just coming in, and I forgot to say this up front, please share this on your page. Please share this on your wall, on Facebook, on Twitter, everywhere. I need you to share this so that we ensure that these messages go by. Look, the media is talking about Wisconsin and Michigan today, but they're barely talking about the other little areas in Houston and all these other places where things are happening. And the story about Michigan and Wisconsin will go away in a couple of days. But the results of what they're doing will last forever. We have the Republicans always hitting Democrats and progressives up about, voter registration and voter ID, because there's a whole lot of corruption. And most of the people convicted for any sort of accidental voter fraud, meaning they voted somewhere they weren't supposed to vote or something like that. Guess where most of those convictions usually are? Republicans. Now we have a race in North Carolina that the Republican folks can't call the race because it was so evident that there was voter fraud in that race. It was so evident that there was voter fraud, so they can't call the race. Okay? But then they talk about voter fraud by Democrats. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist as they talk about, but they are always, because they don't have the numbers, they win elections by cheating. They win. Look, Pennsylvania by far has more Democrats. How comes their legislature looks the way it does? Yeah, gerrymandering works. Texas has a whole lot more Democrats. How comes we're sending mostly Republicans to the legislature? We can go on and on and on and on how the legislature does not match the people. If you take a look at our legislature in the Congress right now, if you take a look at Congress, the amount of people who voted for senators were vastly outnumbered. I mean, Democrats were the ones that voted the most. Yet, mostly Republicans won the Senate race. Why? Because of an aberration in the Constitution that gives little states as well 2 senators. It makes no sense. It is anti-democratic. Now I'm going to have some people say, well, Egberto, this is a representative democracy and it's a federation of states. I don't care. That's the old days. We don't live in the old times. Folks, if you're just joining us, please remember to share this program. Look, those people that are super constitutional, well, the reason we did that and the founding fathers decided that they wanted to do this because I don't give a flying you know what about the founding fathers anymore. The founding fathers had me as 3/5 of a man. Why should I care about that? I care about humanity. I care about you. I care about having a constitution that represents you and the best values in you. One that gives you the democracy you deserve. One that says we can't have a whole lot of folks who don't really care but for a few to govern. So let's get this stuff about, well, what was the intent of the founding fathers? Who the hell cares? And I know that sounds harsh, but if you are in the skin of all of those people who were harmed by the founding of this country, you ought to not care what the founding fathers thought. Care about humanity. Care about what's best for the country. This country became great in spite, not because of. Yes, they created a good framework, but this country became great in spite of and because of all the good people that eventually made up this country. Let's not take that away at all from the people in this country. Everybody always backtracking to the founding fathers. Yeah, they did a good thing. The greatest thing the founding fathers did was to create an elastic clause in the Constitution that made it changeable. But even that was wrapped with a problem. And the problem is we can't get constitutional amendments right now because a minority in this country feels like if they did the right thing, it would harm them as a class. And they have a whole lot of people believe in that. Folks, let me tell you something. And this is important. They're using the founding fathers against you. They're using the founding fathers against your rights. And I'm talking about all Americans. I'm not talking about Americans of color or anything. I'm talking about all Americans. They're using the founding fathers against you. Whenever you are trying to pick out something that you want done good for Americans, good for American values, and you hear them said, well, what were the founding fathers thinking? The first thing that should come out of your mind is, well, if that is what you're thinking, you're not thinking about me. You're thinking about what some old man back in the 1700s thought. And what that old man in the 1700s thought has little applicability to today. Because first of all, he didn't have interest in women. He didn't have interest in people of color. He didn't have interest in natives. He didn't have interest in women. He didn't have interest in any person, bar none, that didn't own land. That's a fact. Look it up. So what I'm trying to tell folks is this. I don't want to be too hard on that part. The founding fathers, they did a good thing by creating a constitution that could change. But that original constitution harmed many of us. Okay? It harmed many of us. That's it. Because of people being good in this country, because this is a great country, we were able to mitigate the bad things. Let's not allow anyone going forward to talk about what these guys did back then to equate it to now to somehow inhibit better things for you. That's very important for us to understand, folks. It is it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of chutzpah. It takes a lot of thinking. It takes a thought process that releases the slavery from your mind. And slavery is not a thing of hue. Slavery is not a thing of race. Right now, most Americans, right now, most Americans are in slavery. They're either a slave to the corporation, or they're a slave to a document, or they're a slave to something. And, like I was talking to on the Conscious Mindset, another program a couple of days ago, it was so easy. It was so very easy to get out of the slave chains, right? It's easy. Slaves had no big deal. You can pop the chains. But the chains went out, you know why? In a lot of ways from a whole lot of things. Because folks know, slavery is not the steel chains that are holding you down. Slavery is here, between the two ears. That's where the slavery rises. You know, yesterday we did the program about the woman whose mind was enslaved by having to think that she came beneath some man, that she needed to be submissive to some man. That was a slave mentality that's being promoted. Not only, and again, in this case, this was a black woman, and these were black men that were insinuating that she needed to submit. So, you know, one of the reasons I am color agnostic or race agnostic is because all people, that's what we are, people, the humans, they have the same disease, and the contagion can be there. The contagion is there. The same white slavery that you have, do you think black people wouldn't be slave owners too? Do you think that is something endemic to white people? Hell no. All human beings have that little thing in their head that would allow them to do bad things, that would allow them to think they should be able to dominate somebody else. So you don't see me buy into all that. I believe in supremacy used for things and all, but you don't see me buying into that. Oh, because you are XYZ, white or whatever, that somehow there's something about you that no. Half the times I'm saying, my God, you are enslaved yourself. All Americans, all people of the world, because of how the government functions, are actually enslaved. And it's liberation. Once you get liberated in the mind, once you are liberated, baby, that stuff feels good. Because then you have no allegiance to government. You have no allegiance to document. You have no allegiance to party. You do what's right. If the Democratic Party is doing great things, I'm a Democrat. If they stop doing great things, I'm not. Actually, I call myself a progressive right now, a progressive Democrat. But what I'm really trying to get out here, folks, is on getting the enslavement of the mind out, right? Forget about all the things that you've been taught about. Oh, what is the word the exceptionality of the United States of America. The United States of America isn't exceptional. The people in America that allow themselves to think are exceptional because they have the wherewithal to be exceptional. There are a lot of these things that we have to get straight in our heads, right? Because there's nothing exceptional about Donald Trump. There's nothing exceptional about all those people that have created wars and done harm. And then try to make it look like, glory, glory, hallelujah. No. 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 I better get to the program. It's kind of getting late. Okay. All right. The title of the program today, and I'm not going to be able to read the entire blog of the week because, as it turns out, it's a pretty long blog of the week. But there's this group called No Labels. So what I said is, no labels, or is this really nothing but a Republican ploy cloaked in moderation? That's the title of the program. There's this group called No Labels, and what they're trying to do is unite people. Come things on a central ground, and we are going to create policies that are going to be loved by 70% of Republicans and 70% of Democrats, all that good stuff they're talking about, right? Look, I'm a member of Coffee Party USA, board of directors of Coffee Party USA, and what we try to do is we try to get people talking together. We try to get people on the left and the right talking together. What we're not trying to do at the Coffee Party USA is we're not trying to force feed you or lie to you. There are genuine conservatives I very much respect. There are liberals I very much respect, and there are conservatives and liberals I have no respect for. It is all about your belief. What do you really believe? And do you believe that at your core? And in your belief, are you sure that you're not harming another human being? And there are conservative values in as much as I disagree with them, it doesn't hurt people. It's just a different value. So I can sit down and talk to you and I can say, well, I think progressive education is better than conservative education. Now, is having one or the other going to kill anybody? No, but I think as far as being able to, for somebody to be more successful, I think the way progressives want to do it is better than the way conservatives want to do it. Now, can we compromise on that? Hell yeah. There's a hell of a lot I'm willing to compromise, and I still think the progressive way is better. But a conservative may think otherwise. A genuine conservative will do things that he can live through. He won't lie to you to get things for a few rich people. We also have the liberals that I said I have little respect for, the neoliberals. These are guys who, they're socially liberal, but when it comes to financial stuff, a lot of the stuff that they're doing hurt worse than a regular moderate Republican. So these are things that we have to understand, and we can't just label it Republican, Democrat, and then hate people. I love everybody. I don't care if you're Republican, you're Democrat, I love you. And the reason why is I am not going to allow the plutocracy to play us against each other. I am not going to allow that, because that is how they win. You see how those cops are going against the firemen when they should stand up together and force Mayor Turner to ensure that their retirement is funded, and not only that, but to get the balls to say, hey, Kingwood, hey, Clear Lake, hey, Houston, we need to raise taxes to give these guys a good salary, and not only a good salary, but ensure that their pensions are paid for. We need to get a tax increase to ensure that teachers get the pay they deserve, and we need to get rid of those administrators that are making a whole ton of money undeservedly. The Humboldt School District here, we pay several $100,000 to the woman who runs it. Why? The people who execute it and make it happen are the teachers. The teachers. Those are the people who do the work. Those are the people who educate your kids. Those are the people in a lot of these neighborhoods spend more time with your kids than you do. Why shouldn't we want then to talk about paying them? Likewise, when they come and they tell us, oh, don't go for Medicare for all because, no, folks. Let's stop listening to those messages and let's try to open our minds. Let's remember there's something called math. Please, not let these guys fool us. I'm going to read this stuff real fast because this is important. Anyway, so there's this group called No Labels, and the reason they came up is they know people are getting tired of fighting, and they want to say, okay, we're going to come up with values that both Democrats and Republicans alike can do. So my subtitle is, No Labels Show Yet Another Method That Is Used to Fool People into Supporting an AstroTurf Movement That Does Nothing to Change the Status Quo, but Makes It Worse. One must be careful as movements come up. They come and go, but they can disrupt important work and siphon funding from places that really are supporting the values of the poor and the middle class. No Labels may just be one of those organizations in the opinion of many. We will discuss some of the research that just may bear this out, its funders, and the policy proposals they tend to come out with all of the time. But folks, before I go, I really need to do this real quickly and tell you this. Please remember, folks, this is a progressive show that needs your support. We can only survive if you support us. So please go to, and this is going to be quick today, please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright and support independent media by supporting Politics Done Right. We do our part as well. We support a whole lot of other independent media as well, and we need your support badly. That's all I can give right now because I'm running behind, because folks, I can be long-winded at times. So please go to, there is a thing on the screen, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. One more time, una vez más lo voy a repetir, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. But folks, do you know what time it is? And there we go again. All right. It looks like there is a problem with the thing. It seems like it's still running, so I'm not going to stop it. But it seems like my screen is frozen right now, but I'm going to disregard that, and I'm going to go on with the program because it looks like it's still going as far as I'm seeing on the screen. So here we go. Here is the program, or here is the blog of the week, and it goes as follows. Is no labels more than a political bait and switch fraud? Okay, let's talk about that. I am always wary of any organization claiming to be above the fray by stifling dissent. Our most challenging task task at Coffee Party USA was learning not to stifle dissent and a difference of opinions. When any organization at all entertains policy debates that seem to originate from the right cloaked as devoid of labels, it is problematic. Read no labels. I've had many concerns with no labels. I did not do any research on them because, as one who knows without a doubt that only progressive policies are capable of reinflating the middle class and empowering the poor, what they came up with was likely of no interest of those of us who are looking for real change. Okay? Well, it seems The Intercept has the goods on no label. Cleo Chang lays it out in a well-written article titled, "Here's a Better Name for No Labels: Republicans." In other words, the continuation of neoliberal policies on steroids cloaked in a facade of moderation. Continuing, Cleo writes, since 2010, a group called No Labels has embodied a particular approach to politics and policy in Washington, D.C. It is one that insists the real problems are partisan, divisiveness, and incivility, and that if only sensible centrists from both parties could be brought together under the right conditions, the halcyon days of the past will return. That sounds good. And for all practical purposes, that is true. But that's not what they're really all about. Yet, curiously, the sensible solutions so often proposed by No Labels and its ilk have an uncanny likelihood of benefiting one particular element of our nation's political economy, the super rich, or more precisely, the finance industry. A new report on Monday from the Daily Beast adds a sweeping array of detail to what many long knew or suspected about this movement, which allegedly wants to remain above the fray. It's funded by the barons of hedge funds and private equity. He points out that most of their carousing, in fact, with blue dog Democrats and Republicans. Here's what he said. Far from remaining aloof from politics, No Labels has consistently been swooping down into the fray in recent years on behalf of Republicans and conservative Democrats. The House Problem Solvers Caucus, which was produced and is funded by No Labels, made headlines recently in its quest to hold up Nancy Pelosi's speakership bid unless she supported their break the gridlock rule changes. But the full suite of reforms would have just ended up benefiting the GOP. After all, it's not like the Problem Solver Caucus pressed for these rules when Paul Ryan was up for the position. Selectively tying the hands of a Democratic leadership in the wake of a Democratic rout in the midterms isn't balanced governance. It simply helps the right. While it was easy to see through the Problem Solvers Caucus' failed ploy to undermine Pelosi, last week saw another effort to push conservative ideology under the guise of pragmatic bipartisanship. A working group consisting of experts from Opportunity America, the Brookings Institute, and the American Enterprise Institute, supposedly a liberal and conservative-leaning counterpart in this think tank world, released a policy report on solutions for the working class. It was touted as a bipartisan plan of action developed in the wake of Donald Trump's election, ostensibly representing the liberal side of the working group as one of three Brookings Fellows is Bill Galston, one of the co-founders of No Labels and the organization's most public Democratic face. Close quote. Cleo referenced a David Brooks New York Times article that everyone should give pause. It turns out the policies that he was going over continue to be failed policies the right continues to push. To be exact, he said, in exchange for rather uncontroversial and moderate policies like expanding the earned income tax credit for childless workers, making the child and dependent care tax credit refundable, and more funding for career education and training, the working group recommends adding work requirements to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, a SNAP, and promoting marriage. promoting marriage. They have also put forward proposals to reform unemployment and disability insurance to promote work, including forcing unemployment insurance beneficiaries to pick up their checks at unemployment offices and cracking down on the ability of insurance claimants. Continuing, Many of these policies are debunked right-wing ideas that have continuously been given the veneer of credibility from the centrist think tank establishment. Take, for example, adding work requirements to SNAP. The efficacy of work requirements has long been debunked. When the same conditions were added for welfare recipients in 1996, employment did not increase in the long term. That's not to mention the fact that most low-income people receive benefits who can work are already doing so. That's the reality. They're already doing so. He points out their misguided support for moral engineering, supporting the sequence of going to college, then marrying, then having children to ensure a successful life. Of course, they forget to take into account is two incomes that lift many out of poverty. Moreover, some have to save up together to send each other to school. Clear provides a trump card that illustrates there is nothing middle-class centric about no labels, and he says the following. Perhaps the parts of the report that best reveal the veneer of the working group's bipartisanship are the policies that the authors write off from the start: free college and universal basic income. They don't want any of that. The first idea, they argue, fails to target the working class, and the latter, they say, devalues work. Really? Yet, there is no similar condemnation of radical right-wing policies like, say, the $1.5 trillion Trump tax cut for corporations, which the authors merely say is beyond our remit. This is despite the fact that the regressive bill is going to deepen inequality between low-income workers and the wealthy, something that should surely be within the purview of a report on the working class. The Problem Solvers Caucus is the most noxious and obvious recent example of pragmatic bipartisanship that ends up benefiting the GOP. But think tanks like the Brookings Institute have long given credence to conservative policies which end up being disastrous for the working class under the guise of working class or working across the aisle. These are not conjectures or anything, folks. This is reality. Cleo ends with a profound statement: no labels. Check this out. Elite think tanks fail to come up with genuinely useful bipartisan proposals because their definition of the partisans involved only includes other elites within their own circles. Indeed, there is overlap between the Daily Beast's list of donors to no labels and the donors that the Brookings Institute named on its 2018 annual report. Howard Marks, co-founder and co-chair of Oak Tree Capital Management, is listed as having given between $100,000 and $249,000 to the think tank. And the foundation of Andrew Tisch, co-chair of Lowe's Corporation, gave between $250,000 and $500,000. The Walton Family Foundation gives to Brookings, while Christy Ruth Walton is a donor to No Labels. But if the benchmarks for a bipartisan policy is that a significant chunk of both parties, along with independents, support it, No Labels and its fellow travelers would have a lot more ideas to work with if they looked at the preferences of voters rather than politicians. All of a sudden, policies they'd written off, free public college, Medicare for all, and even a jobs guarantee, reveal themselves as genuinely bipartisan solutions to genuinely intractable problems. Look, that's a very important statement this guy just made there, and I want you guys to listen to that, because here's the deal. These guys that are purporting to be bipartisan and they're going to take the middle of the ground from both Republicans and Democrats, they're looking at, what did he say there? They're really looking at the elites, because here's the deal. The vast majority of Americans, guess what they want? They want Medicare for all. The vast majority of Americans, and you know what? That includes 52% of Republicans who want Medicare for all. 52% de republicanos quieren Medicare for all. Think about that. Yet they don't support it. More than 50% of Americans want pay it forward college. I call it pay it forward college because whenever you say free college, people are like, oh, well, you want something for free. No, it's not about wanting something for free. Those people who go to college because they're likely to have higher paying jobs, it is pay it forward college because they will be paying more in taxes, which will go to pay more college for somebody else. It's about opening the minds and thinking widely and not falling for the crap you hear from these think tanks that are made up of elites that doesn't have a clue how the average middle class person is living. We have to get our act together. We have to stop allowing these people to control who we are. It is a must that we do that. And if we don't do that, folks, if we don't do that, the plutocracy wins. If we don't do that, fascism is back. I shouldn't say it's back. We actually introduce a new fascism into this country. Let me finish the blog real quickly. And it goes as follows. Let's see. No Labels and its fellow travelers would have a lot more ideas to work with if they just looked at the preferences of Americans, which is they want Medicare for all, they want free public, paid forward college, and they reveal themselves as genuine bipartisan solutions by genuinely intractable problems. Now, that it apparently didn't occur to Brookings or American Enterprise Institute to prioritize the interests of people over those of the elite tells you precisely who these so-called centrist solutions are intended to benefit. Cleo then enumerates, courtesy of the Daily Beast, the millionaires and billionaires who are the benefactors of No Labels and these other organizations of this type. We have Josh Benkenstein, CEO of Blaine Capital, $250,000. John Douglas, $200,000. John Katsimatidis, President and Chairman of the CEO of Gristedis Foods, $100,000. Douglas Durst, President of Durst Organization, $10,000. Carl French, co-founder of Berkshire Partners, $20,000. Former Representative James Charles Jim Greenwood of Republican of Pennsylvania, $15,000. On and on and on and on and on. So the people that are supporting these ventures, there's nothing progressive about them. There's nothing bipartisan about them. There's nothing populist about them. There's nothing that's saying we must have these things. So now let's see, what time is it? My screen here with the Wirecast is frozen. At least it's still transmitting. So let me go ahead and go to the screen, and I want to start talking to my peeps. I want to make sure and talk to my people and let them know, yes, folks, we are going to, look, this is our democracy, right? And we're not going to let these folks take over. And the hardest part of this job, the hardest part of this work, the hardest part of activism is not activating people. Because people will activate if they think their activation matters. The problem is people don't activate because they think it's a lost cause. They don't activate because they think their vote doesn't matter. They think that their activism doesn't matter. And I can tell you from this election here, first of all, we showed that it matters. We got 2 Republican congressmen in this state knocked off that was supported by the evangelical church. The evangelical church is the most potent organization in this state as far as electing people. The most potent organization in this state is the evangelical church. And we beat 2 of their juggernauts. Indivisible Houston, Think Left or Swing Left, Black Lives Matters. All you guys busted your butts out there and you got the job done. And just think, we didn't even do all the things that we could have done. Just think what happens next time around. We are going to do that much more. That much more we're going to do. But what we have to do is consolidate this win. We can't allow them to dilute this win. It's time to consolidate this win because we are going to have to go back to these people that we are bringing to the polls and tell them, hey, your vote matters. What you want matters. And the only way we can do that is to show them that, in fact, their votes did matter. And we cannot show that their votes did matter if we don't start to have results. And that is what we intend to do. We intend to have results. Okay, going to my great folks on the screen now. Let's see. I need to know where to start from. Where do I start from? This stuff sometimes gets to me. Let's do it this way and see if I can do it that way and go for it. Daniel Ledoux, come on, Daniel Ledoux. Why are you going to go there? That is not showing me all the things. Let's see if I can go to another screen. See if that'll show me all the things. Welcome, Mumu Mac, Robert Lloyd, Lawrence Sims. Welcome aboard, Daniel Ledo, Michael Rudnin. Welcome aboard. Bear with me as I try to figure out exactly how do I get to all these people on my phone, because for some reason this thing is not showing up with all the people who've left messages, and I know those messages are there. So bear with me as I find these messages. I'm going to find them. Okay. Daniel Ledo, let's say work requirements for food stamps are a bad idea. The point of food stamp is to prevent the worst desperation that comes with poverty. That's absolutely true. There's this fallacy out there that folks love to be on food stamps and that they just live for food stamps and nothing else. Here's the deal, folks. People have dignity. And there are a few people on this planet, I don't care where you live, what country you're from, what race you are, that you don't really care, and yeah, you are willing to live on the dole. There are, in fact, people like that. But you know what? First of all, I want to tell you something. In my entire, of all the people that I know, of all the people I know, the amount of folk that fit that profile is a grand total of 1. And I really mean that. I know one person who just lives on the dole. One person. Nobody else. Okay. This isn't the No Labels group I'm familiar with. Have they changed lately? Guess I didn't know them at all. Actually, you didn't know them at all. No, they haven't changed. It is the same No Label. Look, I've been in conferences with these guys. I know some of these guys. Okay? But again, the thing about it is you always have to wonder the funding, right? These guys, whenever we go to these conferences, they're always well-funded. Their displays look wonderful. Everything looks very well put together. When I'm putting up our conference stuff, if I'm going out there for KPFT, we have our cheap stuff that we put together. If I'm going out with Coffee Party USA, we have our cheap banners that we have out there. Nothing like what these guys have. And you know why? Because you know who fund us? We are funded by you. Individual little funds come to coffeepartyusa.com. Little funds come to kpft.org. Little funds come to opednews.com. So when you see our display at these different places where sometimes we do radio out there, sometimes we're just informing people. A lot of times what you see out there is you don't see much. But you go see a display for No Labels. It's well put together, and computers and place for people to sit and candy to eat and all these. Well, you know what? It looks good. It looks great. Michael Redden Party for firemen and police officers. It's an interesting idea. Daniel Ledo, stop calling yourself a journalist activist. It is a contradiction in terms. You can be one or the other. That's where you're false, but I won't go into that right now because we're running out of time. I wonder if the founding fathers could have envisioned a difference in the populations between states. No, they probably didn't. But you know what? They gave the Constitution an elastic clause. Now, had we had honest politicians running, they would immediately see that and mitigate that particular issue, but they have no interest to, because that is the way you keep the power. According to Daniel Ledo, the ignorance of EW is showing here, is astonishing. So as it turns out, my good friend, conservative Daniel Ledo, think that I'm ignorant. I am so ignorant that I don't understand how this system works. I don't understand anything about the founding fathers. I don't understand anything about the Federalist Papers and how the compromises that they had to make to get the Constitution together. I don't remember that I was one of the compromises that they made in this Constitution so that other people could have the Constitution. I was thrown on the block. Yes, I understand very well, Mr. Ledo. The thing about it is, your inability to see through somebody else's eyes. If you were the one sacrificed for a constitution to help a few, you would have thought the same thing. And unfortunately, I don't know what your upbringing is, or I don't know what your background is, but more than likely, the same, a lot of the affliction, a lot of things that you think the Constitution was made good for you is a figment of your imagination. Because when the Constitution was written and the Constitution was done, it was a capital document, and that document was really for property-owning men, and specifically property-owning white men. So you can sit down there and think, Mr. Ledo, that somehow this person here speaking about the Constitution, this person here speaking about our government, don't understand it. I understand it too darn well. I'm originally from Central America, from Panama, and I can tell you one thing. In coming to this country, I had to learn more about this country than most born Americans have to know about this country. So please, spare me, my dear brother, the insinuation that I'm ignorant. Continuing, the brilliance of the founding fathers was they understood human nature and natural law. No, the brilliance of the founding fathers is they understood what was necessary for them to keep the wealth that they attained, not necessarily by their own doing. Let's remember that. That's a different story, though. It doesn't sound all that well. It doesn't sound all that good, right? I'm not trying to take, look, I'm not saying these guys were the same kind of bad folk that other bad folks are, but don't look at it like some great benevolence, okay? Please. What happens when that is done is you disregard a lot of other people. You disregard a lot of the dispossessed. You deserve, you make it wrong, or you make it, you forget about what a lot of other people had to sacrifice so that these guys can say, oh, we have this document. Okay, let me continue here. I wish more people really understood their own history. Okay, Ledo is going on a fit now. Let's see. If you're relying on the indignity of humans, you are going to be disappointed. Oh, really? Maybe if I'm relying on the dignity of some humans, I will be disappointed. Okay, BSEW, you were never a slave. You're right, I wasn't a slave, but my forefathers were slaves somewhere. There is no black person in this hemisphere that somehow didn't immigrate from Africa. Didn't come in from Africa. So while my roots are the Caribbean and Panama, okay, yeah, there was slavery in Panama, there was slavery in Brazil, there was slavery everywhere. In fact, the largest amount of black folk ain't here in America. It's south of the border. But you know, we don't know that because the only thing we know around here is Americans, right? We Americans are the only importance here. But if you really want to know the mass folk, black folk, or people of color, go south of the border because Brazil is the largest concentration of black people in this hemisphere. Brazil and the Caribbeans, okay? So let's get real, folks. History, something that isn't taught very well here, my dear brother. So please don't ever sit down and believe this person speaking here is ignorant. What this person is respectful and to this entire place and believe in truth telling. All right, you sure as hell don't understand the 3/5 compromise. I sure do. You know, I sure understand the 3/5 compromise quite well. Then if you're not ignorant, you are being willfully deceptive, and what you're telling people, no, I'm not. And if you can specifically tell me how I am willfully deceptive, I'll be more than happy. I tell you what, one of these days, you should come and sit next to me in this studio. You are invited. And we can have a great discourse because that is what I do. I respect everybody and I give everybody their turn. And I think illumination, I think light is the best disinfectant. So I'm willing to have you in studio here with me to discuss civilly, of course, not the crazy way right-wing folks like to discuss. I speak, you speak, I speak, you speak, I speak, you speak, that kind of a thing, not interrupting. If we have to put some time limits, if you try to monopolize on time, we will. But I'm willing to have you here to have a discussion, sir. And that applies to anybody, you know that. Whether you agree with me or not. Because I think there's nothing like communication. If we can communicate, we can change the world. And evidently, I'm 1 minute over. So, folks, right now, my Wirecast system is locked up, so there won't be a closing with music. So what I have to do is just close the program. The podcast will be corrected with all the different changes. For those people who I haven't answered your questions, forgive me. Daniel Ledo, if you actually I know you're in your rant. If you had more questions, you and I can talk at any time. Folks, my name is, before I better say this, please, folks, please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Please support Progressive Radio. You know the Progressive Radio. Please support Politics Done Right. You know what my goal is. My goal here is very simple. Humanity first. Humanity first. I want what's best for us all, irrespective of who you are. That is the goal of Politics Done Right. The goal of Politics Done Right is to empower, for folks to go out there and be empowered to say, you know what? This is what I want. This is what I deserve. This is what is mine. And if you don't give it to me, I will take it. Politics Done Right. Please go to patreon.com, patreon.com/Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this? I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.